The Harper family had been searching for a fresh start. After years of city living, they found their perfect escape, a secluded old country home on the outskirts of a small town. With its sprawling fields, ancient oak trees, and rustic charm, it was exactly what they needed. The price had been shockingly low, but they didn't ask questions. Sometimes you just get lucky, or so they thought. The first few days were peaceful. Evelyn Harper loved the mornings, sipping coffee on the wraparound porch while her husband David tinkered in the barn. Their two children, Max and Lily, spent their afternoons exploring the dense woods that bordered the property, chasing frogs and building forts. But then, strange things began to happen. It started small, barely noticeable at first. Evelyn would find doors open that she was certain she had closed. The faint smell of smoke would waft through the halls at odd hours, though no fire had been lit. Max complained of scratching sounds in the walls at night, and Lily swore she saw someone standing at the edge of the field, watching them. "Just your imagination," David would say with a chuckle. "This place is old, it creaks." But Evelyn wasn't convinced. One night, as she lay in bed, she heard something. It was faint, almost imperceptible, a voice, distant and hollow. She strained to hear, thinking it must be the wind, but the more she listened, the more distinct it became, a whisper right in her ear. "Get out." She sat up, heart pounding. David was sound asleep beside her, undisturbed. Shaking off the feeling, she told herself it was just a dream. The next morning, Lily refused to come downstairs. Evelyn found her in her room, huddled under the blankets, her face pale. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Evelyn asked. "He was here again," Lily whispered. "Who?" "The man in the field. He came to the window last night. He just stood there, watching." Evelyn's blood ran cold. She checked the windows, but they were locked. The next night, they all heard it. A steady knock. Not on the front door, but on the walls. Soft, rhythmic, like someone tapping from inside. David, determined to prove it was nothing, grabbed a flashlight and headed outside. He circled the house, but found nothing. When he returned, pale and silent, Evelyn knew something had shaken him. He wouldn't tell her what he'd seen. The nights grew worse. The knocking turned into banging. Footsteps echoed through the halls when everyone was accounted for. Max and Lily became more withdrawn, terrified to be alone, and Evelyn could no longer ignore the suffocating sense of dread that hung over the house. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, the lights flickered and went out. In the pitch-black darkness, they heard it. The unmistakable sound of footsteps upstairs, followed by the creak of a door opening. David grabbed a candle and motioned for them to stay put. But when he reached the top of the stairs, they heard him gasp. "Evelyn, get the kids," he called out, his voice trembling. "We're leaving, now." She didn't ask questions. Grabbing Max and Lily, she rushed them toward the door. But as they reached it, the house seemed to come alive. The walls shuddered, the windows rattled, and that whisper, the one she had heard before, filled the air around them. "Get out!" They stumbled into the night, not stopping until they reached the car. As David fumbled with the keys, Evelyn looked back at the house. In the upper window, where Lily's room was, she saw him, a figure dark and motionless, staring down at them with eyes that gleamed in the moonlight. They never returned to the house. Days later, Evelyn learned the truth from a neighbor. Decades ago, the family that had lived there before vanished without a trace. The locals believed the house had taken them, just as it had taken others before, and as the Harpers drove away, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the house was still watching them, waiting for the next family to claim.